Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you all got caffeinated. Hope you all are having a good day so far. My name is Ken. I'm the Senior VP of Product and Distribution at Stacker. So I spend my day thinking about how do we easily distribute stories across our newswire. But honestly, even more importantly, and don't tell our head of engineering who's in the back of the room, it is what stories go across the wire. Because at the end of the day, as you all know, trust with our publishers is paramount. And in the age of AI slop, we cannot afford for a single article to get through that is not up to our standards. And so I am thrilled to have two kind of luminaries with us today who are experts in data storytelling, which is one of the best ways to get yourself cited. And they are going to give us some tips of the trade on how they have built those programs. So Ara and Kelly, please come join me. Ara is the lead economist at Ramp. Kelly is the head of insights at Samsara. Good to see you. Yeah, just jump in wherever you would like. I have my nifty little branded cards, which I love. We are going to jump right in. What I would like to do is kind of ground the audience in what is data journalism, what is data storytelling, you're a corporation, how do you make sure that a data story isn't just self-serving? So Kelly, I'll start with you and we'll do kind of rapid fire. Just give us an example of one of your favorite stories that you've told.
Sure. Well, first of all, it's so nice to be here. I'm so excited to see so many packed seats. I think that one of my favorite stories is probably the one that, I've done so many over the course of the past 10 years, but honestly, one of my favorite stories is one of the ones that I started at the very beginning of my career. And it was really powerful for me to be able to understand just how impactful data storytelling can be out in the market. And that was, I was actually working for a small company called Hipmunk. Steve Huffman was actually the CTO, obviously the CEO of Reddit. When him and Alexis sold Reddit the first time to Condé Nast, they started a small company called Hipmunk, which dealt with travel. And he hired me to write data stories. And one of the very first stories that we wrote this was back in 2016, was about Donald Trump and the Trump hotels. And we noticed that hotel bookings had plummeted to his properties during his first campaign. And so we actually wrote a story on this. We put it out in the market. It was a strategic bet on our part because it was obviously very risky. And it just blew up. It was Donald Trump was deposed under oath for it. I had David Fahrenthold and Mikey Schmidt calling me. If you don't know them, they're big reporters for the Washington Post and the New York Times. It was on every single major news channel. And it was really kind of one of these things where high risk, high reward, but you're actually able to see here was I, this kind of kid, right, trying doing this, and it had a major national impact. And you could really see the power of data storytelling and having access to a unique data set that was actually able to reveal something larger about the world.
Love it. Ara, same question. Give us what was one of your favorite stories?
Well, for me, I really draw my interest in this job to my background in economics. There's a key principle of economics that says that people make better decisions when they have access to better data. And so when I started, I'm the lead economist at Ramp, so we have this business spend data set. What I really wanted to start with was trying to show answers to questions that business owners could not otherwise answer themselves and try to illuminate those decisions with some better data. So for me, it was our flagship research project. It's called Ramp AI Index. So it shows the share of firms in the United States that use and pay for AI. It's an extremely simple metric, but it's a metric that was not otherwise available. I feel strongly about it too, because a lot of it's a sector that invites a lot of punditry. It's a sector that invites a lot of people who have profit-seeking motives. It's a sector in which a lot of the experts who are otherwise giving out commentary have financial interest in the game. For my part, I found that you talk to businesses who really just don't know where to start. There's this transformational technology that is available for which the actual adoption is uneven, such that if you are a normal small business and you want to understand, hey, where do I start what are other firms like me using, there's really nowhere to go. And so I really do like putting out this flagship research, in large part because it both answers this question for our customers. And I think there's actually this like extra enjoyment factor to getting a leg up on pundits who put stuff out without having data around it. And then I can say, hey, actually you're wrong or misguided, or, you're just like following this hype trend. Not to say that I haven't been wrong, I have been too, but there's something extra fun about that for me.
Nice. So both of you in your current roles have built out or in the process of building out these data storytelling arms where it's essentially a product that goes out to the market. Your thought leaders, it's not easy to just say, oh, I'm going to start a data and insights sector in my company, and let's just, produce great stuff that gets David Farrenheld to talk about it. So what was, if we think back to your days at Navan, perhaps, Kelly, what's kind of the first step of building out one of these operations?
Well, first and foremost, I think that the first thing that you have to do is get executive buy-in, right? And a lot of times that's, I talk a lot about having a responsibility actually to be part of the conversation. One of the things, especially during at Navan, when I first started, it was at the height of the pandemic. And there was, like many of you, there was a lot of, if you work for an enterprise company, it was too risky for you to travel. We were dealing with a lot of startups, and those startups did not care. They were like, we need to go out, we need to make sales, we need to meet people. And you understood that. And one of the things that was really interesting is to be able to counter, you had someone like Bill Gates going out and saying business travel is dead. Obviously for us, and when you talk about like an interest, but it was also like, this is not true. Bill Gates has an interest because he owns Teams, right? And so he's going to be pushing Teams. We, on our part, we wanted to be like, this actually is not true. People are out there and they are traveling and they're going to meet their sales team. So let's put out some data. Let's be brave about this and talk about that. And again, some of these things are strategic risks that you take, and you have all the information that you need, you make a good decision and you take that risk. But a lot of times, so for Navan, we were able to be one of the only voices in the room that was out there saying, actually, travel is coming back. Let's track it week over week over week. And it was really interesting because you could even see if I pulled in CDC data on a dual axis and was actually able to show in that, cases would spike, travel would go down. There was like a lagging indicator, and then they would go back up when cases would go down a bit again. And like Elon Gill would tweet it out. We got a lot of people that filling a vacuum. Right. And so the very first step, though, is being able to say, like, listen, we have access to this data. We can be part of the conversation. We can help change this kind of narrative or influence a narrative, or at least say, hey, this is what we are seeing on our platform. Whether or not this is true, like writ large or various other things is fine, but you can be a different voice in the room and kind of have a counter narrative. So getting that executive buy-in and then just to make another quick point is I recently moved to Samsara and am in the process of building out a data storytelling program there. And Samsara has access to 25 trillion data points every single year. That is so many data points, and they collect data from the real world and we pull it in. I almost feel like we have a responsibility and an obligation to be able to tell the public, tell journalists, et cetera, this is what is happening literally on the ground, right? And so then you're able to just provide more information out into the public sphere.
Excellent. So Ara, 25 trillion is a ridiculous number. Other ridiculous numbers are, Ara, you're tracking 200 billion spent across 70,000 companies. I imagine it is not just you mining over the data. What support system do you need? What are the relationships that you need across the org?
Well, it is not just me, but when you do start this function, it was just me.
Fair.
Right?
Fair.
I mean, look, I stand on the shoulders of giants. I'm working with a data set that is supported by a large, smart data team. But usually when this function is started, it is extremely scrappy. This is not directly revenue generating. Even when we started at RIP, nowadays a lot of companies are hiring for this kind of role. But the idea of when we started at RIP only a year and a half ago of a company at our stage, and our youth, as in like literally the company was relatively young, starting this kind of function was seen as quite experimental. So there's not typically that many resources put forward toward it. I will talk to other companies who want to set up this function. They'll usually ask, what kind of infrastructure do you really need to have set up before you do this? And, you do need some infrastructure, right? But I think less than people think. The function of doing economic research is very independent, and it can be very scrappy. You can build data sets that exist outside of the normal product experience. Some people think, well, if we're going to hire someone, they need to be able to post directly on our website. When I first started doing this, I just got access privileges to edit the website. There was because the team didn't have resources to give me, a web engineer. Mm-hmm. So they're just like, okay, edit it, figure it out. Similarly, design stuff. Well, what about the charts I make? They're not always consistent with Ramp's design philosophy. I would post on Substack in large part because nobody cared if I posted on Substack relative, versus our normal website. As you build out this function, you end up falling into more of the systematized rules, and someone's like, well, we should make sure your designs look good, and we should make sure you don't have typos in your posts and all. But I actually think it's a strength to have content that looks noticeably different from the typical marketing content that a company puts out. I think it's a strength that my content sounds like it's coming from me, and I think it's a strength that my content sometimes looks a little bit amateurish, frankly, or looks a little bit like hacked together. I will sometimes purposefully just screenshot like a Google Sheets formatted chart, because especially nowadays when everyone can just make a pretty AI chart, that's actually kind of cool and human.
Uh-huh.
So
I think there's a common...
AI does good charts, actually.
No, there's expensive models, really. You could get some good designs, but,
There's a common theme that I'm hearing, which is basically bravery and just kind of do it until someone tells you no.
You buy it. I think Ara agree. Like, you create buy-in, right? Like by success, through success.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think you definitely need buy-in, right? But look, what executive doesn't like the idea of a pitch that says like, oh, we'll get our customer data in the New York Times and Wall Street Journal? Everybody likes that idea. It's just once they realize what it really takes, which is like, oh, you have to hire somebody who's posting customer data. Also, you can't give them a review process, because once you do, then it's going to get watered down. Also, sometimes they're going to have to talk about politics. Mm-hmm. And again, no one's going to review them. And the person that you hire generally has to be someone who's a little bit like says stuff. Mm-hmm. Like nobody... That's why you have trouble getting buy-in, right? Like, because people want to do it until they realize, oh, that's what it takes. Mm-hmm. Then a lot of the risk-averse executives walk it back. So yes, buy-in, but really buy-in. Like executives who really understand that, first of all, it's not as risky as people think. Mm-hmm. And second of all, the rewards can actually be pretty good if you do it right.
So I want to shift gears slightly. I'm going to put you both on the spot. Pro tip, I actually gave them this answer, but we'll pretend I gave them this question, but pretend I'm putting you on the spot. World Cup is coming up this week. It's launching on Friday. You both have access to mountains and mountains of data. Talk me through your thought process of how would I make this unique for my company to be talking about the World Cup when everybody else is talking about the World Cup? Kelly, you want to start?
I think it goes back to ask yourself, what do you have access to? What is the unique data set that you have access to? And what can you add? What can you pull that as additive, right, to the general conversation and is slightly off? So for us, I'm actually doing this two-pronged, where we did a look at construction buildup over the course of 2 years around the stadiums. So we look at something called like activity, so we look at miles per vehicle or miles per org, just depending on what we want the denominator to be. And we look at just a baseline. We create a historical baseline and then look at how much more we're seeing over the course, like how much more the increase over time. So we've done that. And then during the course of the World Cup, we'll be tracking things like traffic patterns and various other things as well to see like what exactly are we seeing. So Samsara covers a lot of like construction and vendors and manufacturers and various other things. And so for us, and obviously trucking and miles on the road. And so this is actually even a precursor for us when we're thinking about even the Olympics. and how we're thinking about what's happening in the Olympics and how we might be able to actually divert traffic away from various spots. And so you're actually able to look at this. I'm thinking about this long term, but for the World Cup itself, you look at which stadiums need help, stadiums needed the biggest help, where we saw the most construction, and you can really see it concentrating. It actually went back 2 years. We saw a couple of different peaks and then a final push, and that's actually should be coming out tomorrow.
Nice. Ara, is Ramp gonna talk about the World Cup?
I'll admit I have no plans to produce content about the World Cup.
Wait, tell us why.
I think I respect what Kelly's doing, but in deciding my research focuses, when I start from whether or not it fulfills that first assumption of any data that we produce. Does it help businesses on our platform make better decisions? And I just don't think the World Cup really makes that much of an impact for most of the businesses on our platform. Second thing is, it has to do with the ephemeral nature of something like the World Cup. It's very short-lived. It takes a long time to build credibility for a data set, even when you have credibility as a team already with news and reporters. To build credibility on a data set takes sometimes weeks to months of constant content production and research and pitching, and sometimes you only get lucky because it hits on one random day. And so, look, never say never. Not saying that I actually do sometimes do some reports about like fun trends. Like my initial virality came from this one-off report I did about software engineers working 996, the late hours thing in SF. I did a report once about like hotels being expensive during Fashion Week. Did something about saunas once. Like I do those one-off stuff. Like if it's really just if it's fun and for me as like a side thing, because I really do think it's helpful for me at least to focus on our main research pillars. What do I really want to be known for? Right now, I have the benefit of sitting on a data set that is covering AI spend. It's the fastest growing spend category we've ever observed. And I have a ton more to produce on it that I haven't gotten to. And so for me, I like to focus on that.
Yeah.
How do you map out something like that? So the AI spend, massive data set, that story is going to last for a while. How do you personally kind of plan out how you're going to tackle telling the stories and your content plan?
It will last a while, but the specific metrics that we built didn't necessarily last forever. I mean, to start, it's already kind of technical. You can talk about AI, but then once you drop too many technical terms, you lose your audience. I fundamentally believe this is, I think, a principle in news reporting, that you really just get one technical thing to explain to your audience before you lose them. And if you start talking about AI, that's your one technical thing is that. So by design, the first metric that we were reporting for now a year and a half is just share of firms that are using AI. That's because that's what the federal government was reporting at the time. That's because AI is not really showing up in productivity statistics anyway, so at least it behooves us to track how are people using it. But remember, that metric is share of firms using AI. At some point, it's going to approach 100, at which point my data set has no more value. So we just crossed 50% of firms using AI. Now, the technical Overton window has shifted. People know what AI is. People actually might know what OpenAI and Anthropic are. Most people now have name recognition of multiple AI model companies. Most people know the difference between a chat subscription. Some people have heard of a coding agent. Okay, so that's now the window that I can operate in. I couldn't do that a year ago. Therefore, now my research is shifting away from, hey, who's using AI and how much, over to definitions of the intensity of that adoption. What does it really mean to use it well? How much are firms spending per person? And what are they actually buying, right? And so that evolution came out of multiple dynamics, one of them being, hey, let's get people comfortable with the metric at all. And then almost like, hey, like I need to survive. So like I need to change my metric to be relevant. And no one cares who's using AI, everyone's using it now. The question is, can I now provide information about what it means to use it well? So my research shifted to do that.
Excellent. Kelly, I want to go back to something you said a little bit earlier. In your opening anecdote, you were talking about Bill Gates and teams, et cetera, et cetera. How would you respond if people say, well, how can a company not be biased also? How do you, because it's the storytelling, it's also the packaging,
Right.
it's giving it to a reporter who then you need to entrust with it. I know you come from also a PR background as well. How do you make sense of all of that?
Yeah, and I think that and just to follow up on Ara's point here a little bit on construction would be we're in the middle of an infrastructure global a infrastructure boom right now and a build out, and especially with construction, and you're seeing that impact within the economy itself, and when we look at stock prices and everything else like that. And so part of these construction builds, even with data centers or anything else like that, is of course highly germane. I think that for me, what I always try to do is I try to keep a certain level of is it truthful? Is it honest? Revealing, making sure that I reveal any biases about my data set in advance, right? With the Donald Trump example, it was very interesting because we got, pushback on this. And of course, San Francisco liberals who use Hitmonk are not going to book Donald Trump hotels. And that's true. And we're very clear about this is our methodology and this is how we approach this. I try my best to look for third-party validators that what I'm seeing in the market is actually a truthful story, because your customer set is going to bias what in your product set. All of these things that you have out there are going to naturally bias what kind of data that you have. How AI forward are all of the companies that you're using? Is it actually indicative of the broader data set, right? If Ramp has mostly startups, right? Or, tech companies, I guess I should say, or whatever the bias that is Ramp right now, then obviously they're going to have a higher AI adoption than maybe the general enterprise set, which might be a little bit slower, or the global set, or anything else like that. So just being very clear about this is the arena in which I am operating. It doesn't make it less valid. It makes it additive to the conversation. And usually it's fine and you're revealing something broader about the world because it's still true, right? It is still true that you see more construction or more data or more any of these things, right? Or more AI usage or more spend usage or more bookings during COVID. All of these things are true. It's just a matter of how they're a slice of the pie, just like any other survey taking would be or any other data collection would be. So just honesty, and I try to hold myself to, is it true? Is it, what was this? Stephen Colbert used to have a thing called is it truthy? And so there's a little bit of that in there, but I think that you stress test things, you look for third-party validators, and you're honest about this is the methodology.
The third-party validators is really big. We were actually just talking with a publishing group that we worked with last week and asking them what are the types of stories that you are willing to pick up and run in your properties. And that was one of the biggest things, that it's not just this company talking about their data in the industry that they're in. Even if it is 100% legit, it still doesn't always pass the journalist sniff test. And
Right.
having that additional third-party validation is certainly going to help.
Yeah.
Ara, I'm curious, because we spoke about this a little bit in our prep call. Do you have competitors? Is traditional media your competitor, your partner, your adversary?
We definitely don't compete with traditional media. That is a symbiotic relationship, right? We gain from their coverage and distribution. I think they gain from being able to cite this unique data source. Though for AI specifically, our competitors are increasingly the model companies. They have, Anthropic and OpenAI also have their own economics teams. I think that I sit in a great position being at Ramp because
You're removed from it.
yeah, we have no profit. I don't need people to like AI. I genuinely don't. I have no profit interest in that. There's no one's trying to regulate me away. No one's trying to regulate Ramp away yet. But the second thing is, their data sets aren't as good as you'd think. OpenAI has OpenAI data. Anthropic has Anthropic data. we have both. We have a subset of both, but we still have both. And then we uniquely have people who aren't on OpenAI and Anthropic. We have people who don't use AI at all. So when OpenAI and Anthropic produce research about who's using AI, it is inherently limited because they can't compare to a group that isn't using AI. So that's part of the gain that we have. So it's, the bias that they also have. It's the fact that they don't have people who aren't using AI. I know the people who work on those econ teams. Like, we also have our own symbiotic relationship to respect each other and to, try to improve on each other's work. But I do also get jealous whenever I see they get cited. Because I'm like, well, that could have been me. So, but I think that's a quality that you kind of need if you're doing this job. Like, I have the desire to produce great work, and I have the desire to produce work that is helpful to our customers. But this is an inherently public-facing job. And so I do think it also helps to be competitive and to see, the other way I'll say this is that, like, when podcasts I listen to in the morning, like, I listen to the stuff about AI and tech because I'm interested in it and because it's my job. But I'm not just really listening about, like, to learn about the happenings in tech and news. Like, I am listening very intently to how the people invited on those podcasts talk and how they're introducing technical topics. Like, my obsession is not just AI and economics. My obsession is how to talk about it effectively. And I study that more than I want to admit. So they are my competitors as communicators as well.
So I'm hearing, like, we're about to wrap up, but the trends are kind of bravery, chip on your shoulder, be competitive, have your own unique data. Kelly, anything I'm missing? What are the other keys?
Nailed my personality. No, I think that there's that, and then honestly, there is a certain amount of, like, grit. You got to keep going, right? Like, you're not always going to be the one-sided, and so having that competitive edge and wanting to do that. I also think there's a certain amount of, like, just frankly, intellectual curiosity that you need to have. I think that it's fascinating. Like, I find it endlessly fascinating to keep coming. I find it fascinating just to have a big old Excel spreadsheet and comb through things and try to figure things, like, try to find the diamonds in the rough. What could be what's an interesting insight that you're finding that nobody else had? It really, what it does, whether it's travel or, like, now I'm in, like, the movement of things or, like, spend data, what you're really revealing is human behavior. Right? It is an insight into how humans are actually acting out in the real world. And you're able to take that and tell these amazing stories and hopefully get amplification with this and be additive, right? Like, we're additive to this conversation and reveal something that you didn't really have. And so I always feel so blessed and lucky to be in that position where people just allow me to go in and, like, find things and make a statement about the world. And so I find it endlessly interesting. And I would think that just saying, like, if any of you guys are interested in doing something similar like that, having that natural curiosity about the world, it will get you very far.
Excellent. We will end on that note. Let's give the panelists a round of applause.